In this screencast, I want to show you the difference between bitmap and vector file formats. So I'm going to start in Photoshop, and I'm just going to choose File New, and I'll choose one of the presets. Choose the web preset. And I just like to show you, if I draw a circle, and I'm just clicking and dragging with the elliptical marquee tool, and I fill that circle with color. So in Photoshop I can select a kind of a circular shape, my selection tool, and then I can choose whatever color I want. Doesn't matter what color, any of them, and I can go ahead then and choose Edit Fill. Now here I have a circle filled with cyan. And if I zoom in, and I'm using the hotkey right now, there's two different hotkeys you could use. I'm using spacebar plus the command key, or I could use command plus sign. And either way, I'm just going to kind of keep zooming in. With command plus, my document just zooms in on its own. With spacebar command, I then have to click. And I can, if I wanted to, I could add the option key to zoom out and let go of that to zoom in. You can see here at 1600%, I can actually see the pixels that comprise my bitmap image. Photoshop is primarily a bitmap program. So for the most part, the works that you create in Photoshop or that you edit in Photoshop are bitmap images. All digital photographs are bitmap images. All scanned photographs are bitmap images. Most of what you make in Photoshop will be bitmap graphics, like the selected circle that I just filled, where you can see the pixels. Bitmap images are created by pixels. The word pixel stands for picture element, and one pixel is just one of these tiny little squares of color. So you take all these tiny little squares of color, place them next to each other, and when you zoom way out, I'm going to use the hotkey Command 0 to zoom all the way out to whatever fits on my screen here. I can see that when they're stacked really close next to each other, those little bits of color produce a shape. Now vector graphics are totally different. They're not made of pixels. So I'm going to use Command Tab on my Mac to see my open applications. I'll click over to Adobe Illustrator and choose File New. I'll choose my web template again. And I'll use my elliptical tool. So you can see I have an ellipse tool here hiding underneath the rectangle tool. Once again, I'm just going to draw a circle. Now this time, if I use that elliptical tool and I draw my shape, what happens is I get a path. This is called a path. And that path has anchor points. My circle has 4 anchor points. And then there's this center point. This has to do with rotation, but this is not an anchor point. Now in Illustrator, I can use my, my selection tool to select the path. I can also use that over here on my color panel to change. Let's say I don't want an outline around my path, so I'm going to press No in that outline area or that stroke area. And I'm going to select my fill and also kind of change this to be a cyan circle. And see what happens when I zoom way, way, way in. The command keys are the same. I can use spacebar command key to zoom, or I could use command plus sign to zoom. And I'm zoomed all the way in here at 6400%, and you can see there's no indication of pixels, and that's because there are no pixels. In Illustrator, I'm creating vector graphics. Illustrator is a vector graphic application. Vector graphics are basically made of these, I can say this maybe in the background, they're made of mathematical formulas. So each of these anchor points has an x coordinate and a y coordinate, and those sets of coordinates relate to one another. Your vector shape is essentially a set of mathematical coordinates that relate to one another, and the way that they relate to one another is the way that the shape is defined. This means that vector shapes are scalable. You can blow them up as large as a billboard, or you can shrink them down to fit on a website, whereas your bitmap images are completely dependent upon the number of pixels that you have in the image.